Hey there everyone, it's Russ from Path Less Pedaled, and in this video I'm going to take a closer look at the Olympus pen system. Specifically, I'm going to take a look at the user interface and see if it has enough manual controls to be considered a serious camera. I'm going to compare the EP3, which is kind of their flagship model, and its younger cousin, the EPM1. So first I'm going to take a look at the EP3, Olympus's flagship camera. As you can see, this is a photographer's camera. It's got all these great manual controls and dials. You can change the modes right here. When it's set to aperture priority mode, you can use a dial here to change the aperture quickly. I have it set up so I can do exposure compensation with this dial over here. Very convenient. And honestly, these are the two controls I use the most. You know, changing the aperture for depth of field or adjusting for low light, and then adjusting the exposure to get the kind of shot I want, like either high key, silhouette, or just a good overall exposure. If you want to change the ISO value, I have it set so I hit that button and I can scroll through the different ISOs again fairly quickly. There's no specific ISO dial, but honestly that doesn't take too long. If I want to change the white balance, I have it programmed so I hit that button and I can cycle through all the different white balance. Again, easy. No specific dial for that function, but not very. So now let's take a look at the EPM1, the younger sibling to the EP3. As you can see, it's a more slimmed down body. There's no dial here, there's no customizable function buttons. But interestingly enough, it uses the same sensor as the EP3. So essentially, in theory at least, you'll get the same image quality. To change between the different modes, you have to hit the menu button, and that gives you your aperture priority, shutter priority, manual, and program mode. On the EP3, this was a dial, but this isn't a big thing. I usually just set to aperture priority and forget it. Here, the wheel controls the aperture priority, which is nice. On the EP3, there was a specific dial to do exposure compensation. The EPM1 doesn't have that. So what you have to do is just tap that button once, and then there you go. You're in exposure compensation. It's not as convenient, but I don't think it's a real deal breaker either. I mean, you just got to push the button once, and then you're in there. So minor advantage goes to the EP3. To change the ISO, I have it set so I click the same button again. Can change the ISO like that. Put it on auto. To change the white balance, just tap that again. So as you can see, it functions really similar to the. So another interesting feature about the EPM1 is that it has a way faster burst mode. Let's take a quick picture here. That's about 5 frames per second. The EP3, for some reason, not as fast. Only about 3 frames per second. So as you can see, they're pretty equally matched, and in some ways EPM1 is actually a little bit better than the EP3. So why would you buy the EP3 or the EPM1? Well, if you're into dials and customizable function keys, then the EP3 is your camera. There's a programmable function key here. There's one here. You can assign different functions to the different dials. So if you're kind of a button dial kind of person, then the EP3 is definitely your camera. If you're on a budget, then the EPM1 is a great camera. It's about $300 or $400 less than the EP3, but it uses the same sensor. And as you can see, I mean, some of the control, granted the auto exposure comp or the exposure comp dial isn't a specific dial, you have to hit one button, but that's not a deal breaker once again. Another reason that you might only want the EP3 is if you use manual focus lenses. For example, lenses like this. This is an old lens that I had with a Leica camera. When you're manually focusing, you can assign a function key so it actually magnifies the critical focus point and you can get sharper focus. The EPM1, although you can do manual focusing with the kit lens and other autofocus lenses, you can't do that with a lens like this. There's no specific button that you can press that'll bring the critical focus point. At least not that I've discovered there's a way to do it. So I could be wrong, but I don't think that it's possible. So there you have it. That's my review of the EPM3 and the EPM1. Both great cameras, both make excellent travel cameras, and not too different actually. Once you get used to the interfaces, you can make the EPM1 perform almost as quickly as EP3. EP3 is definitely more towards the photographer that wants instant access to things, but the EPM1 isn't that far behind. So either way, you can get the younger sibling and still feel comfortable that you're going to be able to take as good of pictures as you can with the EP3. I hope the review was useful, and if you enjoyed it, consider buying a camera through our Amazon